Hi, Eleanor. I'm so excited to be here. My name is Stacy Mayer, and I coach corporate women to get promoted into senior level executive positions. And I'm on a mission to get 1,000 powerhouse corporate women promoted every single year worldwide.
Oh my gosh. You know what? The power of a clear vision is
Mhm.
just amazing. It's
I can thank
incomparable.
I can thank you for that, Eleanor. I really can. Well, I'm sure we'll get into that, but yeah, it is pretty powerful. It makes me feel powerful too.
Yeah, totally. And it feels so I find that mission-driven introductions and mission-driven intros are so much more powerful than a traditional elevator pitch in many ways. They
Mm,
feel better. Yeah,
yeah, yeah.
right?
Oh gosh.
So, we're going to dive into the mission of getting 1,000 professional women promoted each and every year. We're going to dive into the nuts and bolts of that, what that means, how they can do it, and how you're fulfilling that mission. But I really want to start with your career. So, tell us a little bit about what did you want to be when you were a little girl? What was your dream job?
I wanted to be heard. I wanted to be heard. I wanted people to listen to me. That was actually it. I was very loud, very boisterous, and actually discovered theater at a very young age. And there's this great story about when I was in 8th grade. I was in my first school play, and I received a standing ovation. And I was like, "Yes, I've made it. People are listening to me." And and this woman came up to me and she's like, "You were amazing. You were the only person we could hear." And I remember thinking, "Oh, that's it. That's the key. Be loud." And so I did. I spent a lot of my career and my life being very loud, putting myself out there. And the reason why I say that is because I work with corporate women, and I think that that's how they experience it, which is just like, go for the top, run, put yourself out there, do a good job, and be loud, essentially. And then at some point, they want to make an impact. Right. And so it's like, I was very good at being loud and very good at putting myself out there and doing things. So that's one thing that I had to learn is like, okay, how to transition that into a business, not just be loud, but actually be heard. But I did that for 20 years. I was an actress in New York City, and I have my own theater company in Times Square doing improv. And I was moonlighting at a hedge fund in New York City in Midtown Manhattan. So I had this dual life. And at the hedge fund, I brought the fun. I also brought all of these like spiritual elements. Like I would go out and buy green juices for all the executives because I thought that they needed to find their peace, and take a deep breath. And so so I would bring that kind of energy into the corporate environment, and that's where I really fell in love with executives and the power, and I got to see all of these powerful executives and their blind spots too. And so then eventually that transitioned into working with corporate women.
So much to unpack there. I
Yeah.
love it. I just love it. So the first thing that I want to unpack though that you touched on that I think is just such a rich topic of discussion for so many of us is this idea of meaning. And
Mhm.
I can completely relate that at the earlier in my career, it really was about being heard, about getting out there, about doing all the things that you are supposed to do
Mhm.
and quite frankly, make a ton of sense to be able to get exposed to opportunities, to networks, all of that stuff. But there is a hollowness to it
Yeah.
when it isn't backed up by meaning. I see that all the time.
Yeah, and we started this conversation with this idea of vision. And so I'm going to just, like I said, I give you kudos because the very first thing that we did when we started working together is messaging. And basically, I was already getting corporate women promoted. That was clear. I knew that I wanted to make a big impact, but through working with you, we turned it into a sentence
Yeah.
that I just repeated all the time. And I was like, every Facebook Live, every LinkedIn Live, everything that I was doing, I just started repeating this. And so that became my I mean, it was my mission, but you have to actually say it out loud. And then what starts to happen is it infiltrates you. And so it infiltrates your confidence so that you realize, what is the impact? Why am I doing this? Why do I want to be heard? Right? Why am I putting myself out there? But then here's the beauty of it. It allows other people to help you. So I
Mm,
get all of these other advocates for my mission as well.
yeah.
And that's what I teach the women in corporate is that, I know they're not in it for the title, right? And maybe they were at first, but then now they're like, no, there's more to life. So we have to start first understand our mission and then
Mm.
start to be able to actually share it.
Yes, totally, 100%. And before we move on, because one of the things I really want to explore and break down here is really how an entrepreneur who has a really successful one-on-one coaching practice, like how you make that shift to working with groups of people, because you would have to be working with groups of people in order to be able to have that mission of getting a
Mhm.
thousand women promoted. So we're going to put that on ice for 2 seconds because I want to go back to Times Square, to New
Okay.
York City, to being an actress, right? Moonlighting at a hedge fund. When you think back on that experience, what would you say was sort of the most powerful way in which that prepared you to be
Mm.
the entrepreneur that you are today?
Oh my gosh. Well, the first thing that comes to mind is own it, own it, own it. One of my top leadership value, like my core value is ownership. And I will never forget. I was waiting in the cattle call line at the Actors Equity and for like the 27th time. And I was like, why am I doing this? Like I was waiting in a line trying to prove myself for a pretty crappy role. And I was like, what? And you just see all of these people and you're like, no wonder people stop acting. Like, no wonder they get burned out. And so I made a decision really early on to own my career and to just say, you know what? It's within my hands to do this. So I actually started my own theater company in Times Square because I said, you know what? I'm not going to wait for other people to accept me. I'm going to put on shows and invite the agents to come see the actual shows. Right. I wasn't going to wait and be like, oh, maybe I'll get a chance to perform once every 6 months. I was just going to put on shows. And then I was able to make a living as an actor. Well, I'd say a side living because I literally always had the job at the hedge fund. But I was able to make an income as an actor that is a huge goal for so many actors. And
Yeah.
and then I was able to promote and sponsor so many other incredible performers as well. And so I was able to bring them in and to give them a stage and to give them a voice. And one of my claims to fame, now I'm just going to throw this out there.
Just do it. Do it.
So have you the musical Hamilton?
Yeah.
Lin
Yes.
Manuel Miranda performed at my theater.
What?
Yes.
Oh
Ex-
my gosh.
yeah, but he wasn't Lin Manuel. I mean, he was, but he wasn't yet. And this was actually before he wrote In the Heights, even. And so he performed, but his improv group was so incredible. And what I would do is I would take all of these amazing improv people and just be like, you need to perform at my theater. And that's what we did. And so there was this category of people that were owning their careers. Actually, it totally reminds me of the incubator, Eleanor, where it's just a category of women that are owning their entrepreneurship and owning how amazing they want to be in the world, and they're all just
Yeah.
helping each other. And so that's what we did in New York. And so then that just said, okay, anything is possible if you own it, right? You have to really take ownership, take responsibility, and create it for yourself.
Wow, that is so powerful. And, as you were sharing that story, it reminded me of my early career as well. So after I left advertising, I really wanted to be a journalist. I was like, yes, 100%. It's all about storytelling. And so I wanted to do long form storytelling. So that's all magazine journalism.
Mm-hmm.
And so it was a little bit like acting in the sense that you have to pitch yourself and you're pitching stories, you're pitching stories, you're pitching stories. and editors are taking a look at them. Like, you're putting hours into a pitch that will probably go nowhere, just for the chance to get a small article, get your foot in the door. That is, maybe it's a great magazine, maybe it isn't. And I can completely remember at a different scale, saying to myself, I'm not doing this. Like, I am better. This is how I put it to
Mhm.
myself. I remember, I am better than most of the people I'm seeing whose bylines are in this publication. And here I am competing for scraps of someone's attention. I'm just not doing it. I'm
Yeah.
creating my own like platform. And
Mhm.
so, yeah, there's something so empowering about that switch. And I think what I love about it is that it's not like you were at the height of your acting career when you made the decision. You were still fairly early on, right?
Oh, yeah, for sure. And that created my career from then on out. And then, so I have a secret, and most corporate leaders don't actually realize the secret. Did you know that your company doesn't control your career either? Did you know that? I mean,
Yeah,
it's
right.
almost laughable, but it's like it's this switch in their heads to starting to own that and then to really understand what that means, right? Because as an entrepreneur, we understand it because we're like, well, I mean, I do own it, right? But in
Yeah.
some ways you don't because you need clients, right?
Yeah.
And so it's like how do they both own their career but then have to be, rely on other people to actually give them that promotion, and that's what I teach them how to do is like that balance, right?
So amazing. So amazing. And I can't believe this is the first time that I heard about Lin-Manuel Miranda. That is so exciting. That's huge. Oh my
Oh,
gosh.
yeah.
I
It
love
is.
it.
It's amazing. I'm
So
very
amazing.
proud of it. I, like, went through my old photo album, was like, "He's gotta be in here somewhere," you know?
I know, right? Okay. So let's talk about how you made the transition to starting your business as a coach. So to walk us through how that happened.
Yeah, for sure. So, at so I trans So as I was working at the hedge fund, I actually transferred out to Palo Alto, California. And I knew that I, with the hedge fund, so I was still working at the hedge fund. And then I became a certified yoga teacher, a certified meditation instructor. And I was like, I'm going to teach mindfulness. That was my big focus. I wanted to be a coach of mindfulness. But what I found is that I was actually sitting at home on unemployment. Well, actually, I forgot to mention I quit my job eventually at the hedge fund.
Right.
So that was really the transition is that I ended up leaving the corporate job at the hedge fund. And then I decided I wanted to be a mindfulness coach. And I ended up spending about a year on unemployment thinking about being a mindfulness coach. And I couldn't quite figure out how to own it, right? Like, as we talked about, like, it's like, this doesn't feel good. So I created a website and I said, I'm going to be a business manager. That's what I decided because it felt like a practical thing that I could do. I was like, I
Yeah.
very, very good on social media, really good with systems. I can help support, but I had a caveat. I was only going to work for coaches. And that was it. And
Interesting.
so I ended up getting hired by two local Bay Area coaches to be their business manager. And they actually knew each other. So that's how I got the job for the other one. Right. And so I worked for them. And out of the gate, I told both of them, I want your job someday. And so I said, I want to be a coach. I'm going to figure this out. And so what I did is I was basically taking action. And so I got to be a part of their business to see how they grew their business. And one of the women runs one of the Bay Area's premier women's leadership organizations. And one time we were driving down to San Jose and we had the big flip charts in the back of the car and everything, and I'm carrying all the bags and I stopped her for a minute and I said, I'm ready to be a coach, right? Like, remember what I said, and this was a couple years. And I was like, I'm ready to do it. And she just said yes. And so I was like, all right, let's do it. And so she gave me my first shot. And she said, and Eleanor, if you'll let me, I have to share this story.
Yes.
So she says yes. And talk about like imposter syndrome. I'm like, what? I just got it. Okay. And she's like, all right, you're gonna start facilitating. And these are like powerhouse women. And I'm like, okay, so how am I going to do this? So I go online and I Google women's leadership podcasts, and whose name popped up? Eleanor Beaton and Fierce Feminine Leadership. So this was like, I don't know, how long have you had this podcast? 6 years
Since
ago.
2016. Yep.
Yeah, totally. So it pops up, and it was probably in the beginning of the podcast. And what I started to do, I would listen to your podcast to get pumped up. And now let's go full circle back to the mission. Your mission. So it wasn't about learning your tips and how you teach women. It was your mission. And so every day on my way to these, I would take the subway in. I was listening to how convicted you were to work with women leaders. And I was like, yes, that is what I want to do. This is what I want to do. And I was just listening to it in my ear and really thinking about it and putting myself into that place. And it would get me fired up for all of those. And yeah.
So honored.
So thank you.
Oh my gosh, I'm so honored. And it's the power, to loop it back to what you were talking about in the beginning of being heard.
Yeah, for sure.
Right? The ability to be heard and to be able to get out there to be heard. Okay, so cool. All right. So you say you want the job, and I know that you teach that too.
Yeah,
right?
exactly.
Like that's part of your methodology, which I love. And so you're practicing it. So you say it, she's like, yes, you're doing it. You're listening to Fierce Feminine Leadership. And for those of you who are new to Power Presence Position, that was what the original name of this podcast. So you're listening to it, you're getting pumped up, you're doing a great job facilitating and moving into this coaching space. Then what happens?
Well, I always knew that I wanted to have my own business. And so that was really pretty much the goal. Like I really love social media. I love online business. A lot of the coaches that I was meeting were doing in-person coaching. I love the power of virtual coaching. I love the power that you can connect to more people. I've never been afraid of that. And so I decided that I was going to go out on my own. And I actually, I didn't know how it was going to work because I know that a lot of people have referrals, and that's like a thing when you start your business. And I didn't, once again, it's like I have this series of blessings of having to start from the bottom, which is like, it's been my life, which is really super cool. But I was like, okay, I don't have any referrals. So actually, I started my business in month 1 with Facebook ads and a webinar.
Oh my gosh.
And that was it. That's all. Like I went out of the gate. I said, you know what? I'm going to figure out how to do this. And I just said, I'm just going to put it out there into the Facebook universe. But I mean, I followed a system and I put it out there. And that's how I built my one-on-one coaching practice.
Oh my gosh. Amazing. And guys, who are listening, like what I love about this is there's no one right way to do it. There really is no one right way to do it. And I think what I love about this is the resourcefulness of finding your own way. And I'm all about education, 100%, all about education, all about professional development, all about learning and coaching, but not all about having it be a substitute for your own critical thinking or your own experimentation and so on. So that's amazing. So you get Facebook ads in a webinar, you build up your one-on-one practice. And I mean, you did pretty well for starting from the bottom. I think it was like 8 months or a year in, and it's like you've crossed some pretty incredible milestones, and you're like, started from the bottom, now I'm here.
Yeah, for sure. And I remember okay, so here's the transition with your podcast too. And your audience is like, so again, I'm like seeking out teachers and guides and everything. And of course, I'm going back through my old podcast, and I was like, wait a second, Eleanor focuses on me. Like now, she's actually talking to me. So not only can she get me pumped up, but she's actually going to coach me. Right. And I remember I went onto your website looking at the incubator program that you had, and it said that it was for women leaders who were making like 100K. And I knew what that meant in my head, which was like established business, right? So that you have an established platform and everything. But of course I went to the literal, and I was like, well, last year I made 75K. I don't know if I'm ready. And so I remember sending the email and being like, do you think it's okay? And I was like, oh my gosh, I'm so glad you guys said yes.
Yes. Oh my gosh. And it was the beginning of a beautiful relationship.
Yeah. Oh my God. It's been so incredible. And,
Yeah.
it's funny because you talk about how we all have our own paths, and it's just been really incredible to be a part. I'm now going into my second year with the incubator, and it's been such an incredible process to see so many different women, but the core tenets of what you teach is the same for everyone. And so
Yeah.
that has allowed me to use what you teach, but in my own unique way. So you give
Yeah.
us this path that is so easy to just insert ourselves into. And so
Yeah.
that's basically been what has created where I'm at today.
Yeah, so exciting. So basically, for you, so let's move into this idea of taking this base of one-on-one and then expanding that. And there's so many reasons, but let's get into sort of first and foremost. So you blew your own mind, in the sense of building up this one-on-one coaching practice, helping executives get promoted and land promotions, and managers into senior leadership roles, et cetera, et cetera. So that's happening. And at the time, like, did you see yourself offering group programs or moving beyond one-to-one? Tell us about what that looks like.
So I think that we see a lot that's happening in the world, and there are just so many group programs out there, and you kind of see other coaches, but you don't really understand the process. You see it as scale, right? You see it as, this is my ability to affect a bunch of people. So in the beginning stages, I actually had to constrain. And so for me, it was about sticking to one-on-one coaching. And because it feels at the beginning, it feels really easy somehow to start a group program before your messaging is clear, before your niche is clear, before you know what it is that you offer, before you have a methodology, because you just kind of see it out there and you're like, okay, that's what I'm supposed to do. And so I remember actually wondering about this, because you're so clear about scale and seven figures. And while I know that I'm at seven figures, when I first joined the incubator, I was actually asking myself, but how can I do that with one-on-one, right? And
Mhm.
then you showed me how I could continue. So the first year of the incubator was mostly about committing to one-on-one before I added shiny objects, before I started
Yes.
adding, I got super deep.
Oh my gosh. Can we just pause one moment? Because I think this is huge. Because I actually think that people confuse scale and rapid growth.
Mm.
And they're not necessarily the same thing. Like, what scale really is you are growing outputs like revenue disproportionately to input. So does it take money to grow? Yes. You know what I mean? All of those things. But I love what you're saying, that for there's so much preparation that goes into being able to do that in a way that doesn't burn you out. It's not stressful. It's not from this place of there's not enough. Oh my goodness, that sort of scarcity driven growth, which I cannot take. I just think the world needs to move beyond that model if we're going to survive. That's a whole other story. If we're going
Yeah,
to
and
survive as a species.
totally, because every step of the way, I was at the top of my game when I made the next decision, versus how at the beginning it would be more about, like, I need more, like, that scarcity, that I have to
Yes.
do this because it's not working, right?
Yes. Oh
So
my
every
gosh.
shift that I've made in my business has been actually, and I kind of have to check in with myself, because have you ever felt like things are going really well and then you're like, why did I just screw it up? What I
Yes.
mean by that is like,
Why
you're
in the
like,
hell?
I was getting clients, like, all these people are calling me and they're happy to sign up for my 101, you know?
Oh
Why
my
am I
gosh.
going to mess that up? But
But
that's growth, and that's what we're here to do.
it's true. And I think there's this balance between, to your point, there's this balance between, what I'm experimenting with personally that I think is really fun is my reaction to growth. So there's a reaction that I was kind of conditioned to have, or I guess probably I conditioned myself to have this from being a kid, that growth, that external acceleration created internal acceleration, right? Like, okay, let's go even faster, you know?
Mhm.
And that I think is very much sort of old school business mentality.
Mhm.
Like, you better hurry up and capitalize right this minute or this opportunity will go away. And what I have learned is that external acceleration can be met with internal chill. You know what I mean? And that is the part, like, I notice all the time when externally things start to speed up, I want to speed up, but I don't actually like how I feel when I'm all sped up inside. So, I don't know if you
No,
can
I
relate to
love
that.
the part about like it'll all go away. That I have asked myself that question so many times. And I remember at the beginning in March 2020 of the pandemic, and I thought I had a friend that was like, so what if you're not able, because I had 2 $0 months. And
Yeah.
luckily I was taking your class Marketing Through Adversity at the time.
Yes.
It helped me stay focused. Thank you very much,
You're
Eleanor.
so welcome.
But, it's like, but anyway, she asked me this question and I said, well, I guess I would get a job. Oh my freaking God, no. Now, if you ask me that question now, I would say, well, I guess I would pivot. Well, I guess I would figure it out. Well, I guess, and that statement back in March of last year was scarcity, right? It was like,
Yeah.
yep, that's it. If they don't help me, right? This is not my core value of ownership, right? Like this
Yes.
is not
Interesting.
owning it,
Mhm.
right? And
Yeah.
so, but it's this idea that it could go away. And like, no, because if you're truly convicted, if you truly understand your worth, like just your
Yeah.
worth as a human being, right? That then it doesn't go away. It
Yeah.
doesn't go away.
Yeah.
You figure it out.
Right. And it comes back. So that's I just love that. So okay, so you made the decision for you, and I want everybody to hear this. It was about the process, and we're going to talk about how well that strategy paid off for you, but
Mhm.
that process of sticking with one-on-one.
Mhm.
So let's talk through the one-on-one, because there was we want to kind of take people through sort of three shifts that you went through to make the
Mhm.
transition, from a company that offers only one-on-one coaching to a company that has two very distinct, clear, and interrelated revenue streams, right?
Absolutely. Mhm.
Right. So let's kind of start. And we talked first about messaging. You talked about it off the top, but why was that important? Why was it important to get that right?
Yeah. So I felt like my messaging was clear when I first met you. And
Yeah.
because it was like, I knew what I was doing, I knew who I served, but what happened was you gave me actual sentences and the suggestion to repeat them. And so
Right.
you there's a process called selling with story blueprint that you give us, right? So this is an example of how Eleanor gives us all these great tools, but then we can insert our own. And at every moment of that, there's a moment in it where you have to introduce yourself, right? So if you're doing a Facebook Live, if you're sending an email, right, you have to talk about it. So that 2 sentence introduction that I shared at the very beginning of the podcast is the same one that we worked out together through messaging. And it's a refinement and a repeatable process. And so I think what happens is when you say, this is what I do, and this is what my mission is, and then there's also a methodology sentence in there, and you repeat it over and over again, two things happen. Once you start to see yourself as a teacher, as a person who creates a process versus just a coach, right? Like, and not just a coach,
Yeah.
please.
Yeah.
But one of the challenges with coaching is that we do figure it out in the one-on-one conversation as opposed to like this methodology. And I think as a consumer, and eventually when I started my group program, they have to see your process, right? Like they can sign up for one-on-one coaching because they like me, right? Like, it's like, yeah, I mean, they can trust the process and then just like me and sign up for it, right? That's good
Yeah.
enough. No, it did it. And I really saw this once I did start to see my group program. I saw how saying and understanding what my particular methodology was for over a year and a half before I actually launched the program allowed that program to just come to fruition in terms of the program itself. Like it was like the mess. So that all happened through messaging and
Mm,
sharing that and then in social media and my emails and everywhere. I'm on my podcast as well, and really just
Yes.
understanding.
And y'all,
Yeah.
and I do know that there are, everybody should just go and check out the podcast anyway,
Mhm.
because I think it's really key. But here's a question that I have, or a point that I wanted to make about what you're saying, and it's about why messaging is so important. And so at the time, we offered a program called the Messaging Lab. Now that's the Power Presence Position Business Accelerator, but I, as a coach, and what I arrived at this point where I was like, in order to scale a service business, like there's certain foundational assets that really do need to be in place. Because to the point that Stacey's just made, when you are offering something one-on-one, people will buy it because they like you. And there's this completely different, there's a different relational kind of thing. And to a degree, we're always buying services because of the company. We like the company, know, like, and trust, all of that. But it's this idea that once you have messaging becomes really important, because now your marketing isn't just about building trust with you. It's about building offer awareness and building brand awareness. And that's why when you have your messaging in place and you're able to talk about your methodology, and that you deliver this methodology in the executive ahead of time program, now people come into your ecosystem and they are really well educated, and this creates really qualified leads, which is what you need to sustain a group program. So there's some really important stuff that Stacey's alluded to here that I just want everybody to get. We're not just talking about messaging because we like the sound of our voices. We do, but it's more than that. Like, there's very practical reasons. Is there anything you'd add to that?
Well, the only thing I'll add is that because I was realizing and refining and understanding and working on my methodology, it allowed me to have that constraint when we talked about staying in one-on-one longer, maybe than I wanted to, because, because it's like, you can kind of see the shiny object and you're like, oh, I could just start a group program. But because I still had my work to do, right? And I was like,
Yeah.
oh, I can go deeper with this. I can understand this. And, and we also think that, so there's the client that comes to us that's been following us for years and sees our methodology and kind of understands it that way. But then there's also the conviction and the confidence. So the next piece is that because my messaging was so clear, my sales calls were super clear. So I could have a very cold lead. This is the first time they ever saw me, and they would get on the phone with me and they would feel that energy of the whole year and a half, right? Like, they
Yeah.
felt the energy of all the articles, all the podcast episodes, everything that I did that was based on this singular idea of becoming the executive ahead of time.
Mm. And that, of course, creates authority.
Yes, exactly.
Yeah, which is
Yep.
totally magnetic. Totally
Mhm.
magnetic. Yeah.
Yeah. Mhm.
So cool. Okay. So messaging and really nailing that's one of the core sort of milestones that you'd outline, in
Yep.
making that switch from one-on-one to niche. So, one-on-one to group program. So let's talk about the next milestone that you identified, which was niching.
Yes,
Yeah. Let's talk
exactly.
about it. How did that unfold?
So, first of all, I want to tell everybody listening, niching is an advanced topic. And what I mean by that is, you think you've niched and then you meet Eleanor. And and it's so important because there are all of these subtleties to niching at that, what I say, that advanced level, because it's like, okay, so and actually at the time I was coaching corporate managers, is what I would say. That was the
Yeah.
actual language I would use, and to really think about, okay, corporate women and why and really understand that. And then it was like, okay, what type of corporate women, what are their challenges? And the honestly, the most important tool that you gave us is that I think is part of power presence position as well, which is the most valuable buyer tool. And you said, okay, it's a whole process, but it was like, look at who's actually paying you the most money, right?
Yeah.
And I was like, and there were 5 people and they all paid me the most money, and it was all very clear, their descriptions and exactly who they were. And so I was like, that's my niche. Right. And it wasn't, I mean, I guess if people are paying you the most money aren't your niche, like maybe that, that's not what I'm talking about, but like it really was. And so I just had to say, then it became the internal work. And so then I came back to Stacy and working with your team of coaches. And I remember working with Kate, and it was just like, she's like, why are you tolerating all of these clients that aren't really your clients? And I was like, what? And by that, it means, actually, I wasn't really talking about the clients. It was the sales calls. Why are you tolerating all of these sales calls that, of course, they feel convincing. Of course, they feel like off. Of course, they feel draining. They're not actually your clients. And so a big transition for me with niche is once I got clear on that niche, I decided that I couldn't do sales calls with the wrong people. And these were subtle wrong people. Like I was like, I remember talk about growth. I was like, what? I'm not at the revenue I want. I'm not at my client numbers that I want. And I'm going to start saying no to sales calls. Like, how is that even possible? And so I literally had to trust the process, and I had to say yes to saying no, and everything changed. I mean, it was like, I look back at my year and these like pivotal moments. That was a pivotal moment, because I was saying no to sales calls, which I went, okay, if I'm going to say no, then I have to say yes to the right clients, and they better know that they're the right clients. And so my messaging just got amped up. I started putting myself out there in a much more specific, niched way. Those women started flooding in. People, I was getting interviews on my podcast with the people that would attract those people, and creating these partnerships. And I had, because of niche, I filled up my one-on-one coaching. I mean, we're talking months, like not like a couple months. And then I'm just like, okay. So I went from like wanting to barf because I was going to say no to sales calls to like, okay, Stacy, you better figure out, like, you got
waitlist vibes.
You better figure. Yes, totally.
I just, and I so love this example, because I think it also comes down to courage, right? Like the enormous courage that's required to lead, because I think this extends beyond marketing. I think this extends to leadership of the business, and how for so many of us, leadership is much more about what we say no to than what we say yes to.
Oh my gosh.
It's about, right, like making decisions based on principles and trusting, and evidence, but sometimes the evidence, you got to wait for it. So this is really powerful. And I think that energy too of saying no, a few things here that I think are really important, like how that shifts selling energy, right? Like how it shifts the selling energy, where it goes from, I've taken the time, like they've taken the time to research your company, but you've taken the time to think about them as well. And that it's like a meeting of the minds, which is completely different from please hire me.
There is this concept that you talk about. I know I heard it on the podcast, but it's this trust in your client, right? Like this, for people to say yes, you have to trust yourself, trust the program or the process, but really trust your client. And so when I was getting the ideal clients on the phone, I trusted them. I trusted them beyond belief, because I would like, you are here for a reason, and my process can help you, and let's just do it. And it was that kind of energy, but it came from this niche work. It came from really understanding and investigating my clients and really knowing them inside and out.
Yes. Oh my gosh. So powerful. Okay. So the messaging helps with a ton of clarity. It helps work out the methodology, and it helps more deeply enshrine the mission. The niche starts to, what that does is it starts to like deepen that entire process, but it basically releases a ton of energy, that enables you to completely sell out your one-on-one coaching, which is amazing. Now you got to create the group program.
I'm going to hold up my Eleanor Beaton water bottle here. It says JFDI. That's the next JFDI. Just do it. that's it.
Oh.
Now you just got to do it.
Yes. So what was that experience like? Sort of just doing it. I know there's these additional lessons that you have around it, but
Yes.
I'd love to hear, yeah, what was your experience like? Because I think you've launched it 3 times, correct? Or
Mhm.
twice?
Yeah,
3
3,
times.
3. Yeah. Oh
Look at
my
you go.
gosh. I just
So
think of
exciting.
all the, oh my God. It's,
And
I, yeah, like,
we're going to use
mhm,
language here in a
mhm.
second so that you know. So we have JFDI, which is just do it. And then we also have SFSO, which is 6-figure scalable offer. So what we're referring to here is simply a revenue stream, like a leveraged offer that is capable of scaling over 6 figures a year in annual revenue. So it's just a useful milestone. So that's what we call it, right? So take it away.
So there are, it there was an August retreat as part of the incubator program that was specifically focused on the 6-figure scalable offer. And for me, that was in the future. Like I was thinking, okay, that's probably, and it's kind of funny because it was like basically right now, like April
Yes.
2021, I was like, okay, that's next year. It's not really, and what I'm referring to is August of 2020, right? I'm like, okay, but I love this retreat. I'm getting so much out of it. And then once again,
For
I
the
will commend
future.
you.
For the
Yeah, for the
future.
future,
Yeah.
for the future. Definitely not JFDIing it now, but we'll JFDI it in the future. But this is another testament to your team, right? So we get this coaching, we get these little nudges, and we get just basically these questions like, okay. And so there were two things that came up for me, which was so first of all, you gave us the whole process, right? Like, this is how you create the 6-figure scalable offer. So I was like, okay, so logistically, I had a process. And then I also had a full one-on-one coaching practice. So the question that was proposed to me was like, okay, how are you going to get through these next 6 months, right? Like, so it was like, okay, so there were two options. One is that I could raise my prices, and essentially what that meant for me was raise your prices so you can serve less people.
Yeah.
So you sort of do that so that you can eliminate some people, and so you don't get as much influx of people. And so I mean that's a good strategy, and especially if you have other things going on or whatever, it's totally fine, because now I'm thinking about that for next, for
Yes.
me. But or you can start now, and you can start your 6-figure scalable offer, and you can serve more people that way. And that allows you to expand and scale in that way. And then the other piece that was so pivotal was that I actually had the methodology. So it was in that moment that I realized that the messaging that we had been doing all year was the program. So I have a program already written, essentially. It's ready to go. I knew what my methodology was. I need to scale, essentially. Like, this is actually from a future vision place of, getting 1,000 corporate leaders promoted. That was clear. It wasn't it wasn't like serve less people and charge higher prices. It
That's
was
right. You're
like
not going
serve
to
more.
change your life mission.
Yeah, exactly. So that I could, yeah. So I was like, okay, let's do it. Let's JFDI it. And so I decided that, and actually I looked at the dates. I said by March of 2021, which was going to be my first launch, I decided in that moment that it was going to be my third launch. So I was going to do it
Amazing.
3 times by March of 2021.
Yes, that's so exciting. And so tell me about what your life and business look like after having launched that SFSO.
Yes.
And yeah, I'm so curious.
Well, um, where I'm at today is really, well, can I share with you some of the things that I learned, like, once I launched it?
Please
Is that
do.
okay?
Do it.
Okay. I think
Yes.
that'll help sort of set up
Yeah.
where I'm at today.
Yeah.
So, we were talking about JFDIing it, and I created it, but one of the, you've heard about start before you're ready, and that's essentially what I did. But one of the concepts that I teach my clients is this idea that right time, right place doesn't just happen. It's something that you create. And I think so often in the corporate world, we see people get promoted and we feel like they were in the right time, right place. They just knew the right people. And we sort of blow it off as something that just happens. And then also, what we do as women is we sort of get all our eggs together and make sure that we're ready to go. And then we launch the program. But here's the deal, is that you have to learn it as you go. Oh my goodness.
Yes.
So I learned
Yes.
so much through those 3 launches. So much just by taking action and by actually doing the program. And so really talking about where I am today, it's this idea of being able to just take action and learn from the process, learn from the clients, learn from what they're doing and how they're having success in this program, and then just like make your own right time, right place.
Yes.
And so
Totally.
and so then that leads me into where I am right now, which is allowing for more. So a very unexpected thing happened. So I'm working on my messaging for over a year. My niche is very clear. The program was really, really good out of the gate. Like the actual executive ahead of time process, I've probably been working on for a couple of years. The program only existed for a short amount of time, but it was built off my actual clients' experience. So the unexpected thing that happened is that I had a lot of people wanting to work with me one-on-one. So let's go back. My one-on-one coaching program is still full. So I
She's
was
like,
like,
still
"What?
sold
It's
out vibes. Yeah.
still full. So how do I do this?" And I remember wishing that I could get more people into executive ahead of time, and it wasn't wishing. I was actually kind of hustling. I was like trying really hard to get more people into executive ahead of time. And I had this realization that if I wanted more people, and knowing that the program's actually really, really good, you know,
Yeah.
that I was gonna have to figure out what to do with them next. And that was
Mm.
extremely unexpected. And so this is this idea of allowing for more, right? And so I find that like with the women that I work with, there's this self sabotage, right? So it's like, of course, we want a promotion. Of course, I wanted more clients. Of course, I wanted these executive ahead of time program to be sold out. Of course, I wanted it to be the best program on the market. But if I didn't know what to do with the clients that wanted to continue to work with me, besides just adding more hours or raising my prices, right? I was like, I have to figure that piece out. And I had to figure it out quick. So I was able to just make a decision and to actually say, okay, I'm going to figure this out. And so what I did is I really just said, took lots of deep breaths and said, all right. And I had 4 women in the first program. So there were 10 people in the first program. 4 of them wanted to continue coaching, which I was just, testament to
Amazing.
you, because the way that you set up this 6-figure scalable offer is that it's a feeder tool into your higher level program. And
Yeah.
so, but I didn't have a higher level program. And so I basically just told them, okay, here's what we're going to do. We're going to keep coaching, and this is what it's going to look like. And I turned it into this hybrid group mastermind program where I could actually serve all of them. And then now that I've launched 3 times, that this keeps happening. So we're adding more and more people to this higher promotion accelerator program that I've created. And I'm still sort of understanding what that wants to be. And on top of all of this, I have a book coming out, because this book is literally being launched as part of all of this process, because it's like, of course, and I'm ready. And
Yes.
so this whole idea of allowing for more and really being ready and willing to say yes to what's actually coming to me, and to say, you know what, let's do more, because I really am going to get, now I can see it. I'm
Yeah.
getting those 1,000 corporate women promoted each and every year worldwide. Like, it's happening. That's what I'm
Yes.
doing.
Well, and and that's the idea, like having a mission that you love, that you're excited about, that you are reinforcing every time you open your mouth about what you do. It becomes this gorgeous, like, organizing principle. And then our job really is simply, I think, to start to build the infrastructure or the ecosystem that allows the growth to happen. You and I have talked about this, and it's something I think we don't talk about enough, but that we should. And it's this idea of our capacity to have success our capacity to have the things that we want come to us, and also our capacity to actually make room for our mission to be realized, and
Yeah.
it's this idea, right? Like you were saying, and I've been through this as well, it's that earlier version of ourselves says, wait, right? Wait, not yet. I'm not ready. I'm not ready, which is different from applying constraint, right? It's
Yes,
different from
exactly.
applying, the
Yes.
energy around saying the hold back is different. But this larger version of ourselves is like, I accept, and isn't it fun? Don't you love who you are through it? Like who you become
Oh,
through it?
absolutely. I spend a little bit more time shaking, but it's interesting too, because I think it's like I always understood that you had to allow, and besides like taking deep breaths or kind of literally like I lived in a meditation center in Dharmasala, India for a while. So we're not going to go there, but
An amazing history.
but there's this idea of surrender. Literally, they like fall to the ground and just like surrender, right, to
Yeah.
whatever is going to happen. So there's this idea of allowing. And then there's a process, and this is what I teach my clients when I talk about this idea of self-sabotage, which is that we have really bad role models. And so the actual action of allowing for me and what I share with them is surrounding ourselves with those people that are doing it. So there's a two-parter, which is the surrender. And then the other piece is understanding that it could be possible for you. So for them, their bad role models are like their boss, or the current executive team is really bad and they don't have the same values. So why would I want, or they're all burned out, right? And so through being in the incubator program and this community of women that are all paving their own path, and and I'll add another term in there because this, is like a jewel business,
Yeah.
right? This idea that not only it doesn't even feel like an idea anymore. It actually feels like a requirement that I need to have 30% of time for me. And so as I'm allowing this growth to come in, it's because I see how it works in a way that works with me and that's
Yeah.
aligned with my core values. And so by surrounding myself with better role models, and by surrounding myself with people who are doing it and processes that actually say that you don't have to do it this other way that you don't like, it, I guess, allows you to allow.
Yes. Yeah. Because you're actually aligned
Mhm.
with that thing,
Yes.
that you want. And this is so important because I have in my life, I have tried to go for things that actually weren't aligned. I
Oh.
actually didn't want them. I thought that I did, but I actually didn't, because of the way that I might have to go about doing it, or, all of that stuff. So I can't agree more. I think this idea, and I think it loops back to what we were talking about at the beginning about what women want, and this meaning. And I think alignment is a part of the meaning, that it becomes that it's not just about the things that we have or the money in the account or whatever. All of that stuff is fun, but it actually is about the process. Like the
Ah.
whole process has to be meaningful in and of itself.
Yeah, and now I'm thinking about why I got into getting corporate women promoted. It's like I think at the time when I was sitting at home on unemployment wanting to teach mindfulness and yoga, um I don't think that was my calling. And what's happening
Yeah.
now is I am getting these incredible powerhouse women promoted. I
Yes.
mean, I am making a difference, and I'm doing meditation with them, right? And I'm teaching them
Yes.
how to slow down, and and some of them are hiring me
Yeah.
because of this, or they find out about my improv background or my sense of humor and these types of things. Like they're hiring me because of me. But
Yes.
boy, my mission is so much bigger than
Yeah.
the actual tool of mindfulness, right? And so
Yes.
it's like, yeah, I wasn't supposed to do it then. Like I was sabotaging myself sort of, but man, this is it, right? And everything is aligned and I'm just going for more and more and more, and I feel more grounded, I feel more centered. I'm carving out more time for myself because I know my ideas are so important and I need to give myself that space, and it feels
Yeah.
really good.
Oh, it's so exciting. Okay.
Yeah.
So I know that everybody who's listening to this loves you. So listen, I want you to share where people can go to learn about you. And honest to goodness, ladies, if you're listening, like I want you to not only go yourself to check out and learn more about Stacy Mayer and her work, but I'm challenging you to bring one woman along with you. So bring
Mm.
yourself and pay it forward. Another woman who you know would benefit from this work. I mean, we haven't even gotten into 1/8, not even 1/20th or 1/100th of the executive ahead of time process, and this idea of creating the right time and space and taking ownership of your career and all these amazing things. So anyway, what are the deets? Where do they go?
So, first thing, Maximize Your Career with Stacy Mayer is the name of my podcast. So, definitely check that out. Like Eleanor said, share it with your friends and you listen to it yourself. It's extremely inspiring and you will love it. And then the second thing I was thinking about in terms of this mission and how we can't do this by ourselves. And I've actually had men more recently, ask like, I'm not a corporate woman, but I really resonate with your message. And I'm like, look, we're in this together. Like we're on this mission together. And so if my mission resonates with you, then I invite you to connect with me on LinkedIn. And also, as I'm building up this book, make sure you send me a message because I'm going to need allies and I am willing to ask for what I want. so, so, that's what I want. I want you to connect with me on LinkedIn, go to Stacy Mayer and you will find me and send me a note. Let me know how you found me, that you heard me on this podcast. And then I'll be putting together that book and I would love your support.
Oh my goodness, so exciting. I can't wait. And I'm so excited about the book also because it's just again, right? It just all connects. It's this idea of 1,000 women a year promoted into senior leadership roles and the impact that that will have inside organizations and the corporate world worldwide. I love entrepreneurship. I love, running a business, and we can't advance gender equity on our own. We need big companies on board
Mhm.
with us. And I think really making sure that there are women and diverse leaders in positions of power is so huge. So, yeah,
Yeah, yeah, they need the tools, right? That's what we give them,
absolutely.
the tools. And I just got goosebumps thinking of that is how we change the world, right? We change the leaders at the top, the people who have the influence. We bring more feminine leadership to the corporate world, and yeah,
Yeah.
this is why I do what I
Yes.
do.
Yes. Oh my gosh. With you. All right. I just want to thank you so much for a really incredible conversation and also for your ability to kind of walk the path, but really pull out, key milestones in the journey. I think understanding milestones, that's what allows us to conceptualize, see how it can work for us and, move forward in a way that is unique to us. So I so appreciate you and honor you and your mission and the person that you are and everything that you're doing for women leaders. Thank you.
And you as well, Eleanor. I honor you and I am so grateful for your guidance. Whatever Eleanor says, I say yes and, and I do it and it works. It's amazing. I'm so honored as well to be on this podcast. So thank you for that. This is a milestone for me.
Yes.